How is our language changing?
Well, according to this research, we're using fewer of these adverbs which grade the adjective. So some adjectives, something's either possible or impossible, there's no in between, but something like happy, there are degrees of happiness, and you can say you're very happy or quite happy, and we're apparently doing less of that according to this research.
And why is that the case? Why are we not seeing this sort of language?
Well, the author claims that we're being more direct. It may just be that we're using different kinds of adverbs. So rather than saying frightfully and awfully, which sound really old-fashioned to us now, maybe we're saying kinder and sorter and bear, for example.
Those are kind of things that you hear a bit in Americanisms. Do you think that it's partly to do with Americanisation, or?
There may be some of that to it. It's a very complicated and sort of subtle question. You have to get really into the nitty-gritty to find out. But of course there's a lot more links between the two countries and a lot more cross-contamination, if you like, of the culture. So some Britishisms get into American English and vice versa, but the two are still quite separate.
Do you think it has something to do with our culture, I suppose? Obviously it has a lot to do with that, but does that mean our culture's changing as well?
We're still, I mean, culture changes all the time, and language is likely to reflect that, but, you know, we still retain that essential, you know, Britishness of what we are. You know, we haven't stopped saying that things are a bit or very or quite or rather something. It's just the words we use have changed.
And what other changes are we seeing in our language?
Oh, language just all changes all the time. It changes. It can be very, very slow changes, but it's constantly in flux, and there's always these just shifts one way or another. So, you know, in this instance, for example, it's just different types of words rather than different uses of them.
And obviously some people say that the old-fashioned words are more appropriate, and some people saying kinder sort of isn't really as I don't know how to say that, but you know, so it's sort of more posh, I suppose. Do you think that that's the case? Do you think how things are moving forward, things are going to be less like that?
Possibly. There's certainly less of a desire these days to sound posh and, you know, less desire to sound upper class, and maybe more desire to fit in, to be cool, whatever. So, you know, in the 90s we said, well, good. We don't do that so much anymore, but...
Do you think it's a generational thing as well?
There are different words for different, and regions as well. So in the north and in Scotland you get pure or purely. You don't get that so much in the south. So it's different groups, different ages, different regions, different subcultures.
And can you sort of predict what's coming up in the future at all?
No,
or not
it's
really?
so hard to predict. It's notoriously difficult to predict. There are some changes that, you know, we can see how they're going, and we can say maybe that will, you know, continue to go in this trend, but it's very hard to predict how language is going to always change.
Great, fascinating stuff. Thanks ever so much for coming in.